January speaker. I know that it's always hard to come back after the holidays and get back into the swing of things, but this is really a very, very important topic that we're going to be discussing today, and a really dynamic, great speaker. So I'm really excited about introducing Lieutenant Dan Pratt. Lieutenant Pratt has worked at the Long Beach Police Department, Vice Investigations. He's a 22-year veteran of Long Beach PD. He has a master's degree from Cal State Long Beach in Emergency Services Management. And those of you may remember in our December 2014 awards, he was here with his team, they've been doing great work in Long Beach. And if you've had the pleasure of listening to Lieutenant Pratt's one of his trainings, then you know why you're here, because it is very dynamic, and I think he's really great at getting to the nuts and bolts of the topics and giving us the information we need. So please help me welcome Lieutenant Pratt.
It's quite the introduction. I hope I live up to it. I'm not real good with mics. I tend to do this a lot, so if it's too loud or too quiet, just kind of give me a signal or something. Would it be okay if I did it without it?
Sure.
That's okay?
Talking that loud.
Okay. I am a loud person as it is, so try that without it. You heard my introduction. My team deals with human trafficking along with several other topics, but the majority of what they do now is based in human trafficking. The reason being is that the more we investigated, the more we learned, and the more we realized how big of a problem it is. Back before 2012, the end of 2012 actually is when the crime of human trafficking became, it was a felony, but it became a much stiffer penalty for felons. Prior to that, we arrested people doing a very similar thing, and we arrested them and prosecuted them for pimping and pandering. So it's a very similar crime. The difference is when they gave it more time, we realized we had to have a victim, which we never really talked to the girls before, quite honestly. We needed a victim to get pimping and pandering. Typically how we got that was, very few times, if we got a pimp, it was because we caught him beating someone. And then we pulled them apart and the girl would say, he's been pimping me. That's literally the only cases we got for pimping and pandering. It's very, very difficult to prosecute a pimp. And the girls typically didn't talk back about the guy. They'd never go to court and prosecute him. So what changed is when the crime of human trafficking on the books became a much stronger felony, we realized we needed victims to come forward. And we don't have a relationship with our victims. We never talk to them. They didn't like us and we didn't like them. Before I had hair, they would pull our hair. They would kick you in the groin. They would spit on you. And we didn't like them and they didn't like us. And quite honestly, we made arrests. We didn't ask them. We didn't ask them, what's going on with you? Why are you in this situation? How can we help? All the things we understand now. We didn't understand it back then. We thought this was a choice they made. This is just the environment you grew up in and what you chose as your profession, if you will, your way to make your living. And looking back, I've been here 22 years. I've arrested quite a few prostitutes and never asked them a thing. In my head, that's not how I was trained. I was trained, look, they're a problem and they don't like us, we don't like them. When someone calls and says there's 6 of them on the street corner, go arrest them, pick them up, put them in the van, book them, they'll be out by Monday. That's how I was taught. And all the way up until 2012, I came out in '93. Until 2012 was when I finally realized this is not the problem we think it is. These are girls who, as realizing now your introductions, I realize the group I'm talking to, you know as much or more about this topic than I do. I just happen to be the person in front of the room right now. I'm pretty sure I could take at least 50% of you and put you up here and you know the same stuff that I do. What's scary about this though is when we finally learned how to talk to the girls and got the experts to teach us and started trial and error to see what will get the girls to talk to us, we realized we've missed the boat for a very, very long time. And we've got so many girls and men, so many victims out there that we passed up. We literally walked right past them and put them in jail. And our new programming and the way we do things now is entirely different than we used to. So without further ado, I'll start the presentation. The first slide is a video. It's called Making of a Girl. Anybody seen it? A few? So it kind of gives you a good stereotypical way a girl gets involved in life in the first place. And I will tell you, it's very, very common for this type of entrance into human trafficking in Long Beach.
you're 12 years old and you're living with your moms, and your mom's is struggling because she didn't think that life was really going to work out like this for her, and she doesn't have a man around, and the men that are around haven't always been that great. Sexual abuse is becoming kind of normal for you, and you think that other people don't have secrets that are as bad as you, and maybe you've tried to talk to somebody at school and they haven't really heard you, or maybe they just haven't had time to listen to you. And so you're seeing these girls on the videos, and they're so pretty and they're so sexy, and so your way at 12 of escaping into this fantasy world is to think about what it must be like to be one of these girls, and you know that adult men already look at you, and you wonder how you can kind of use that.
I was just a child, and that's how I was supposed to live, like a child, like an adult.
So one day you're coming out of school and there's a guy outside in a Cadillac, and he's nice looking. I mean, he's got the baseball cap and the jeans and the Timbs, and he tells you how pretty you are, and you know how pretty your hair looks, and it's been a while since anybody even really noticed anything about you. And for the first time, you feel like somebody's really interested in you, because now all of a sudden he's asking you about your dreams and your hopes and where your father's at, and he says that he can be a daddy to you.
The people that I shouldn't have depended on, I was depending on for support.
And so that night he takes you to a club, and he puts you up on the stage, and he gives you a few drinks, and there's men throwing dollars at you, and it's scary, but all the time you're just looking at his face in the back of the room, and he's like, you know, go ahead, baby girl, go ahead, you're doing it for daddy. And you're feeling proud because nobody's ever said that to you. And so then that night he tells you that there's more stuff that you've got to do, and he takes you into a room, and there's a man there, and he tells you to strip, and you think this is something you'll never do, and yet there's a part of you that already knew how to do this, because that's what your stepfather's been doing to you all these years before. And so you turn that trick, and it's like a part of you has died inside. And so you come out of the club that night, and you get in the car, and you know he's pumping 50 Cent, and he takes you to McDonald's, and he tells you, you did a good job tonight, sweetie. And he's stuffing his pockets with the $1,000 that you made. And right now, you're happy.
The people that I shouldn't have depended on, I was depending on for support.
All the sexual abuse, all the neglect, all the drama, all the pain, all the trauma has prepared you for tonight, where you stepped across a line that you always thought you'd never really quite step across. And you don't realize that night what it'll be like to be on the track and get raped. And you don't realize that daddy isn't really going to protect you. You don't realize what it's like to have a gun held to your head that night. You don't realize what it's going to be like when you catch your first STD. You don't realize what it's going to be like when you first come home and daddy beats you for the first time because you didn't make enough money. You don't know what it's going to be like to have cops offer to trade sex with you in exchange for not being arrested. And then sometimes you'll do that and they'll still lock you up anyway. You don't know what it's like to sit up in jail and know that you just made $1,500 for your pimp last night, but he won't come down and put $200 bail on just to get you out a few days early. You don't know what it's like to walk down the street at 6 o'clock in the morning when you're just getting off work and people are starting their day and they see you and they know what you do and they look at you in a way that you just don't feel like you belong in that world anymore. And you don't know what it's like to feel like you've lost part of yourself along the way and to feel like you'll never leave. And no matter how many times you try to leave, he'll always find you and catch you. But that night, all you care about is the fact you're riding in the Cadillac, and you're eating McDonald's, and you're listening to 50, and you've got this one man who you really think loves you sitting right by your side.
So many common themes in that video that work for Long Beach cases as well. You talk about McDonald's. One of our first cases where we got one of our detectives who literally does not look like a cop. I mean, he's got tattoos everywhere. He looks horrible. The first time that I saw him, I thought he was a suspect, not a cop. And that's the honest truth. But he is outstanding at what he does. But he gets a girl in the back seat through some battling. She wanted to fight him. And he decides, you know, I am hungry. I'm going to try something. So he pulls into the Long Beach, or the McDonald's drive-thru. And he says, can I get you anything? Instead of looking back saying, are you hungry? You know, and placating her, trying to be that way, he says, she's not going to respond to that. And he says, I'm getting something to eat. You want anything? And she goes, I could eat. What do you think she ordered?
A full meal.
Like a Big Mac and like fries and milkshake?
Good guess, because that's a hearty appetite. It's Happy Meal. Very, very common. 25 years old, 35-year-old on the street, a Happy Meal. And I'm sure given the background of everybody in this room, you understand why. She hasn't had much of a childhood. Her childhood has probably been robbed from her. The majority of our victims have been victimized from a very young age and have been victimized their entire lives. So when they finally left and got on the street and get involved in the life and we come in contact with them, we hear a very common theme throughout their stories. So the numbers, well, not the numbers yet. We talk about human trafficking. It involves adults, children, male, female. We haven't had any male cases yet, but we know they're out there. And we're starting to kind of get into that area little by little. As you can understand, it's not something that men report. It's not something they're going to look to the cops to help them out with. They're not going to want to talk to anybody. Numbers are staggering, and seeing as how we're in the beginning of 2016, these numbers are all going to go up. Once we get new numbers from 2015, all the numbers are going to go up, guaranteed. I've already heard some reports from Homeland Security. It's definitely going up, as well as the number of victims. But this is the part that scared, well, first of all, $32 billion industry. There are estimates now it's a $150 billion industry. Homeland Security has information that says it's closer to $150 billion. That means it's continually growing. That's why it doesn't stop. If there's that much money in anything, it's never going to go away. You can put a dent in it and you can make a difference, but you're never going to make it go away when there's that much money being made from it. Like cartels and things with drugs and guns. It's never going to go away. They're just going to find another way around it. This map interested me because it is almost identical to the bus routes. Obviously you can't take a bus to Hawaii, but if you overlay the map, the routes, it's very similar. And these routes are routes of domestic trafficking. Why? Because if you're a pimp and you have a couple of girls, you burn yourself in a certain city. Say you're in Long Beach and you've been arrested a couple of times, or you've dried up your customer base. It's time to move. Take the bus. You only need one customer to pay for the bus fare. And now you're on the bus. Name the route, name the place. And the red dots are pretty much every city where the girls have been. And we've had numerous victims come in, and after we've interviewed them, we realized they've been all the places on that map. When they were started at 14, 15 years old, and they've been with their pimp for maybe 3 or 4 years, they've been on many of those places. Because they'll stay for a few months, maybe a few weeks. If things aren't going well business-wise in San Diego, then let's go to Long Beach. Long Beach burns up, let's go to LA. They spend a lot of time in Las Vegas because there's a huge customer base, a lot of revolving tourists. So they spend a lot of time there, and when that burns up, they go across the way. They'll stop maybe midway in like Kansas, something like that, and then they go down to the East Coast and they work their way up and down the East Coast until they burn themselves and burn up their customer base. So a lot of them have warrants in other places. Not every city is doing what we're doing, and I'll get to that in a minute. So this is why it's so popular, and this is why there's so much money in it. Now this isn't Pretty Woman. This isn't what some would term high-dollar call girl, for instance. This is a girl who gets put out to see 10 to 15 guys a day, and this is what her pimp makes off of her. $1,500 a day. That's one girl. Wow. Most pimps don't have one girl. The majority of pimps have what's considered a stable. I've been told people don't like me to use that term. I use the term constantly because I want people to recognize it. If you have kids and you have their phones in your hands and you're looking through the text messages, I want you to hear some of the words I'm going to use today, because if any of those words are in your kids' text messages, call me, because we need to get them out of whatever they're involved in. But this is why. If you have one girl, it's $1,500 a day. Imagine when you have 10. That's why it's not going away. So people ask, why does a girl get involved in this in the first place? And I can guarantee at least 90% of the people in this room know that already. It's not their choice. It wasn't something they chose to do. Prior to 2012, as I mentioned, that's what I thought. This is her life. If she didn't want to do this, she'd just go across the street, work at McDonald's. Why does she have to work on the corner? I had no clue. Now I understand. I understand the psychological aspect of it. I understand how she got roped into it. I understand her whole life has been this way. The majority of the girls that we talk to have been victimized practically from birth. If you want to define victimization, practically from birth. Oftentimes sexually molested from the start of 3, somewhere around 12, 10, 9, something like that. The stories are very similar, and by the time they got to 12, 13, 14, they were fed up. I don't want to go home because I know what's going to be there. At least I get to dictate my future. I know what's there for me at home, but if I go to my girlfriend's house, I have a chance of not getting that to happen to me. Or I choose my partner, not my stepdad or uncle, whoever else is at the house. So we have had a few mentally ill, and I would say more balanced that they were lower IQ rather than mentally ill. The lower IQ girls are easier to manipulate, and the pimps will tell you, when we talk to them, some of them brag and brag and brag about how easy it is to do the job they do. Because they figure, I'm not going to incriminate myself to give myself more time, but I'll tell you about my business and how I do things. They pick up girls walking around high schools, for instance, with their heads down, the rolled shoulders. They're walking with their heads down real slow, they have no friends, they're not looking with their head up, laughing and talking. They're looking for the next victim, the weakest from the herd, the one they can pull off to the side. One of the stories the pimp told us, I drive around at high school, and he said, I'll get a girl within 2 days so easily, no problem. I'll drive past the one time and I'll pick her off the herd and I'll compliment her on whatever I think she's concerned about. If she's a little overweight or she has bad hair, bad clothing, whatever that thing is, I compliment her on what I think is her weakest point, and then I drive away. He said, what do you think she's doing the next day when I drive down the sidewalk or drive down the street next to the sidewalk she walked the next day? What is she doing? She's looking for him. She's on the edge of the street, she's looking for that car, and as soon as he pulls up, she can't wait to jump in the car. She's anxious to jump in the car. That's scary. That's a girl who has no love in her life and is looking for anyone to notice her. Someone's going to finally notice her, and that man noticed her, complimented her on something that she feels so guilty or so self-conscious about, and she's ready to jump in the car. And he said, sometimes I have to tell him, oh, easy, easy. I just realize how young she is, or people are watching, or something like that. But he said, you guys struggle to get a girl to dance with you at a nightclub. I can get a girl to jump in my car in 2 days. Just like that. Drug and alcohol addiction is kind of an old school way that pimps used to manipulate their girls. They would get them addicted to a drug. They would put them on the street, have them do their business, and they would come back and they would get their treat at the end of the day. It's kind of old school. We don't see much of that anymore. We still have some drug addiction and some drug addicted prostitutes and victims, but not so many. Most pimps, though, start out as Romeo pimps. What they do is they start a dating relationship or courting relationship. So for the first couple of weeks, some might take a week, some may take a month. But during that time, what they're doing is like any other relationship. When you first meet someone, you're learning about them. You're finding out what's your favorite color, what are your aspirations in life, goals in life. Any normal relationship does that. But he's doing something a little bit more. He's gathering intel to use as leverage later on. You've heard the metaphor of the carrot and the stick. He's learning what he can use to motivate her, whether it be positive or negative. So one of our cases, he learned that this girl had to go home every night at 8 o'clock to give her dad medication. He was very, very sick, and if he didn't get his medication, it could be deadly. He didn't have to talk to her anymore. He doesn't need to be nice as Romeo Pimp anymore. He doesn't need to do anything. He's got everything he needs right there in his pocket now, because all he needs to know is you have to be home at 8 o'clock or your dad dies. You'll do anything I want, or I will keep you at my place and your dad will die. To throw a little extra on top, he found out she had a little brother, 10-year-old brother. He picked him up from school one day and dropped him off at home. What leverage do you have there? Your little brother's not going to make it home from school tomorrow. They're evil. They will stop at nothing to get the girls to do what they need them to do. So now the Romeo thing is over, but typically what happens is Romeo treats them like gold. And their goal is to get a girl because you love me, you'll do these things for me. And we have so many girls in our custody, or we've arrested them and talked to them, who have said, I won't tell you anything about my pimp, or that's not my pimp, that's my boyfriend. He loves me. So let me get this right. You sleep with 15 strangers a day, give every single cent to your boyfriend because you love him. Absolutely. What does he do for you? He provides me a place to stay and feeds me. Do you think that's a fair trade-off? In their mind it is. It's better than the situation they had before. At least now they have a home at night to go home to, or he's not going to hurt me, he's not going to bother me. I know that I have to shut off my emotions and my feelings to do this thing I do during the day, like every other employee does at work, right? You have to put your 8 to 5 in, I have to put my 8 to 5 in. Mine's a little different. But I come home, I have a stable home life, he takes care of me, he feeds me every night, eventually I get some new clothing, I get those shoes I've been looking forward to. It's unbelievable, but in their mind this makes sense. It doesn't make sense to any of us in the room, but in their mind it makes sense. We've had female pimps, we've had a mom. We've had the 25-year-old male pimp and his mother who helped out. Mom fed them, clothed them, got them ready to go. In the morning they split off in 2 different cars. He took some to one street, she took others to another street. At the end of the night she went and picked them up, collected all the money, gave him the money, mom cooked the meals at night. A little twisted, a little odd. We've also had 16-year-old female pimps. Who in here understands the concept of a 16-year-old female pimp? What they do, you have your girl in your stable and you say, if you want to work less or do more out in the street, I got a plan for you. You go to high school and go recruit for me. Bring some girls into my business, you'll have to do less for me. You have 10 customers now, how about 1 a week? You bring in 2 people, you only have to service 1 guy 1 time a week. Fair deal? So that's what you as parents have to look for, or grandparents, uncles and aunts, look for in your children, because they're out there recruiting in every school. They're in every school. You may not know who they are, but they're recruiting. And girls, and when I talk to high schools, I tell the girls, I don't try to look anybody in the face, but there are certain girls in the room who don't have a lot of friends, have low self-esteem, who may suddenly get invited to a really big party. The big man on campus. Why would he suddenly invite you to a party? You've never been invited to a party before, they don't like you, you don't like them, and now suddenly the jock, the quarterback, or the cheerleader is coming up and asking you want to go to a party. Something strange about that. Typically what happens is they get date raped. They get a drink, someone puts something in it, they wake up in a room after numerous people have done what they had to do with her. And someone got paid for that. That happens. More than we'd like to announce, but it happens. The other thing girls do is they get arrested. Now, we do a different thing in Long Beach now. We take a female victim off the street, and our goal is to put her right back out with services. So if she's a minor, we have a whole different, it's an LA County protocol. We put them with DCFS, and they have much more time than they used to have, but they dedicate a worker to that person, take them aside, and try to get them back in a normal lifestyle. Quite honestly, and they will admit it, years and years ago, we give them to DCFS, DCFS puts them back home. What's your address? 123 this street. Boom, you're back home. What did that do? You put them right back in the same environment they were left in the first place. The reason they left was that bad thing was happening to them in that environment. Now we put them in exactly the same spot. It makes no sense. So we're all catching up to this and finally realizing we've made some mistakes. So they try to put them back in the same environment if the problem that they left for is gone. If the boyfriend's gone or the uncle, whoever that is, we can deal with that. If not, then we have to find some other place. We have to find another home for them, somewhere else they can go. Not locally, where they can go right back out on the street, somewhere where they can get away from all of this, get some schooling, get back to their life track to where they're supposed to be. But a 16-year-old female will typically get arrested, purposely, for some other crime. We don't arrest for prostitution, but we will detain them and get them off the street and give them to DCFS. But if they pick a fight with someone and they get arrested and they get sent to juvenile hall, they're going to be placed in the home. What's at the home? A bunch of other girls just like her. So they don't lock them up at night. They just walk out at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock, midnight, whatever. They've made some friends. Hey, you want to make some money? It's a great life. It's better than being in here. He'll treat us right. He's really sweet. Make a ton of money. Whatever your sales pitch is, now you're off out of that home and back on the street. A pimp operates his entire business through a cell phone. They don't need laptops. They don't need log books of any kind, nothing. They use cash cards and a phone. It's a very simple, structured business, if you will. They get a girl into the fold by the dating process we talked about, take a photo of her. They have the pat ad already that, I'm here for a couple of days, service all your need, blah, blah, blah. Put that out on one of the websites. The phone starts ringing almost instantly. We did the same thing to do a sting, and we took a picture from someone in Europe, maybe a body shot or something like that. The phone rang, I'm not kidding you, within 15 seconds of hitting send to place the ad, within 15 seconds it rang. And I was completely perplexed. I looked at the sergeant, Sergeant Hooker, I looked at him and I said, How does the phone ring 15 seconds after you place the ad? You can't sell a car that way. I don't know. I literally was flabbergasted. Well, Google Alerts. You put Google Alerts on Backpage or one of the other places they put these ads. So if someone places a new ad in the parameters that you've put down, blonde, whatever the keywords are they use in the ads, you put Google Alerts on those things. So the guy's sitting in his office or wherever he works, and his phone buzzes. I've seen her before. Keep typing away. Seen her before. Keep typing away. An hour later, ooh, that's a new one. You available at 1 o'clock? That's how the business works. You can't sell anything but women that quickly. You can't. Try selling a car that quickly. You can't. You literally can't. I've never heard of that. 15 seconds that phone rang. We had to turn the phone off in 5 minutes because we had booked the entire day for dates for this anonymous girl, this fake girl. In 5 minutes, we had booked the entire day. 1 o'clock? Okay, 1:15, 1:30, 1:45, 2 o'clock, we were done. We didn't have a van big enough. We didn't have enough personnel to manage the number of guys that were coming in to see this girl. Scary. And I say repeat because it's exactly the same thing. They get another girl, cut and paste the ad, send it off. And now put her in room B. First girl's room A, second girl room B, other girl room C. And run your business. Sample ad, very common. I had a lady come in whose daughter was doing her high school paper, and she was from Palos Verdes. And she said, after hearing a lot of what you're hearing today, I told her a lot of the same stuff for her paper. And her mom stood up and said, I want to thank you for the information. It's very eye-opening. I'm so glad I live in Palos Verdes where that doesn't occur. Exactly. And I said, well, we are at my computer. I do have access to this page I'm showing you. I typed in their city and I turned the screen toward her, and her chin dropped and her daughter just stared at the screen for a while. That's your city. They don't advertise because they want to. They are victims of human trafficking. Everybody in this room knows maybe there's 1% of the girls who advertise that for some odd reason are in a position in their life that they've chosen to do this to make money. That's 1%, probably less, because every single one of them that advertises up there has someone they're paying. Because if they don't, a pimp's going to make a date with her and make her his girl. Because nobody makes money on the street without a pimp collecting it, and no pimp makes money without collecting it and paying his bodyguards. So you have to be associated with a gang, otherwise your girls get stolen from you. So no one up here is working by themselves and taking all the money in. Nobody. This doesn't happen. So yeah, she was shocked. But as everybody in this room knows, every city across the nation has this problem. I can punch in Kansas City, you name it, some city in Minnesota that you think is obscure, and no, they're there. Every single one of them. The best victim for a pimp is one who doesn't consider herself a victim. She doesn't need to be watched. In the morning, she gets herself up via the alarm clock. She's self-motivated. She gets up, she makes her own appointments, she goes and takes care of business, and comes home at the end of the night with a pocket full of cash. Happily. Here you go, honey. Here's your money. Kiss him on the cheek, kiss him on the lips, whatever. Go sit on the couch, watch some TV, get some food. That is the perfect victim and perfect girl for him. It's hard to get to that level of pimping where you can get a girl like that doesn't need to be watched. But if you can do that and she's happy, that's easy for you. That's your business. It's so easy. Now there's levels from that. You have that, then you have the girl that you have to stay on top of and constantly send threats to her phone. I see you looking out the window, what the hell's wrong with you? He's not even in the area. He's probably in another city altogether. But he's texting her, you're out of pocket. Who's heard that term? Out of pocket means you're breaking a rule. There's a whole list of rules that the girls are given. You don't do this and that. You don't look another pimp in the eye. You don't date anybody I don't send. You don't pocket any of the money. If I send a guy over there for an $80 trick, I better collect $80 trick when I pick you up. All those things are out of pocket. If you don't do what he's telling you to do, you're out of pocket. So he'll type to her from another city, he'll say, you're out of pocket right now. And she's like, I'm watching TV in the room with the blinds closed. What did I do? What did I do? Well, all it does is put a mental image in her head of the butt whooping she's going to get afterward. So she's going to stay doing what she's supposed to be doing. She's not going to go out of pocket. She's not going to call anybody. She's not going to do anything. This is the problem we have, though, with society. When society dresses their little toddlers in prostitution appearance, it's not a good thing. And we look at it all the time as, oh, it's so cute. We'll have pimp and prostitute costume parties. We don't think there's anything wrong with that. We're perpetuating the cycle. We're allowing it to happen, and we're promoting it. We're promoting it further. The end.
Hi.
Go ahead, do you have a comment?
Oh yeah. So I'm not gonna say names. I actually have a friend from a different country who posted a picture for Halloween and he was a pimp, and I was like, staring at it, I was like, dude, really? Do you have any idea how bad that is? And the fact that people think it's okay to do that, like, dude, I'm 20 years old. He's older than me. The fact that he doesn't think that's okay, thought that was okay, that's just absolutely terrible. And
It's ignorance. He doesn't
stupid.
understand. He doesn't understand. But this is what happens when you have games, this Grand Theft Auto game, you get points for raping and killing a prostitute. As each auto theft game comes out, it gets worse and worse. You kill a cop, you get bonus points. You kill it. What are we teaching our kids? It's a rated R thing, but I don't know how many people in here can tell you that there's 12-year-olds playing this game. There's 9-year-olds playing the game. 9-year-olds don't have any clue what it is. They just know they do this thing and hit these buttons, it gives you extra points. They don't know what it means. But you get to 12, 13, 14, they know exactly what it means. So to them, this is acceptable. Prostitutes are expendable. They're not victims. They're expendable because in the game, you can rape them at will and kill them. So that's how it is in real life, right? It's acceptable. We wouldn't put a game out like that if it wasn't. Otherwise, you're killing monsters that don't exist. This is a realistic game. You steal cars, you do drugs, you kill prostitutes, rape them, and it's acceptable. And with each and every edition that comes out, it's worse.
I interviewed Bishop Don Magic One.
Church.
About a week ago. Incredible interview. The one thing he said, because in your movie you mentioned the whole, how you actually got into pimping and stuff like that. And the one thing that I talked to Bishop was that, he said a lot of people thought that he pushed you into that, but in fact he was saying how he told you to go back with your wife.
Him, Minister Seymour, and a couple of other real pimps kept it 100. They didn't want that for me, but I wanted that. I was a kid, and I dreamed of being a pimp like my whole life. Like that was all I seen as a kid was a nigga with his nails done. He had a light blue suit on with 7 bitches, and they all had on baby blue like him. He had a baby blue Cadillac. When he jump out, they open the door. They go set it up for him, bring him money. He ride up on us, call me to the car. What's up, Slim? Break me off a few dollars. Let me sit behind the wheel of his Cadillac, turn the steering wheel, put his hat on, and look up at him like, man, I want to be like you. You understand what I'm saying? So when I was finally able to do that, to really say, man, I'm finna really jump off into this pimping shit. These bitches really like me, and I really feel like I got the pimping in me. So with disrespect to my wife and my everything, I went on the pimping binge for about 2 years straight. Like for real. Real hoes, real pimping, but I fell in love with a bitch. That's why I had to do a movie called Bossing Up, because the first rule of pimping is, thou shalt not love a hoe. And I fell in love with a hoe, which was compelling because I wasn't the only pimp, and I wasn't the last pimp to fall in love with a hoe. I was just the first pimp to tell a story of a pimp falling in love with a hoe. That's Bossing Up.
Sorry for the choppy video, I don't know what happened there. It normally is very smooth, but you get the gist. That's Snoop Dogg. At one point in the Long Beach newspaper, in the Press Telegram, he was called Long Beach's #1 son. Long Beach's #1 son, as you'll see in more slides, promotes pimping, has no issue with going to the Players Ball, which is an annual event. He plays DJ, he'll perform, he'll be an MC. It's the Players Ball. They do it twice. They do Chicago and Las Vegas, where they recognize pimps. You'll see that in a couple extra slides, but that's Snoop Dogg talking about his lifestyle. How many kids watch whatever he does and emulate that? Every single step he makes, every song he sings, every word, every lyric, they know everything about him. I did this in high school and they all went, yeah, he was pimping. I didn't know that until I pulled that video up. I didn't know he was ever a pimp for 2 years. The kids knew everything about it before I did. Oh yeah, they were telling me when he did it and where he lived and everything. But that's acceptable. That's what we allow to happen. They all dress up in their pajamas. It's pretty much like the Golden Globes or the Oscars. There's red carpet. They walk in. The more girls, the prettier girls, the better. So you walk in with this. The shinier you are, the bigger pimp you are, the more girls you have. It's a big ego thing. So they walk in with a big pimp goblet. They're all decorated, number 1 pimp, number 2 pimp, whatever. Respect to the guy who won this year. Maybe I'm not number 1, I'll be number 2, and next year I'm gonna get him. The guy who they choose as the pimp of the year is typically the guy who made the most money because someone has to pay for this event. So the guy who made the most money, and there are pimps out there that make $10 million a year. We arrested in 2013 the guy who was supposed to be pimp of the year in 2013. He wasn't from Long Beach, he just happened to be in Long Beach, and we arrested him for what he was doing. But that's the thing. So that if you make enough money, you are pimp of the year. Who else is going to pay for this thing?
Hey y'all, this is Kanique Sky. I am at the 2010 red carpet for the Players Ball. You know how they do. This is your girl from straightfromthesky.com in conjunction with hiphophoney.com, and we are doing it big tonight. Snoop Dogg is not only hosting, but he's on the 1s and 2s. He gonna spin it a little something, and you know Don Juan is gonna show out. I don't know what to expect, but I got the camera going and I got my microphone, and we gonna check in and we gonna get all the dirt right here, y'all. The 2010 Players Ball. I'm called straightfromthesky.com, and I'm also reporting from hiphophoney.com. And I want to say congratulations to you because you're debuting a new skill tonight. Now, what brought this about?
Well, I've always been, you know, a DJ. I've always been one to play good music and, you know, represent the party in a real way. So I just wanted to come through for Bishop. Bishop loved from when I played for music for him, so he wanted me to DJ his party. And it's his 59th birthday. You don't get to be 59 every day, so I just wanted to spread with him.
That's right. Well, I heard you talking about some major positive things over there. So how do you incorporate all the things that you do, the talents that you bring to the table, entities like this, into giving back to the community and being an influence?
Do Snoop Dogg, baby. I don't try to put on no act. I just do me, you know what I'm saying? I don't try to please nobody but me. I work for one man upstairs, and that's God. And if he ain't got no problem with it, I ain't tripping on what you feel.
Thank you so much, Snoop. Thank you.
Yes, God
It is so good to meet you, first of all. I think what you're doing is phenomenal. I want to
Doctor, a
know.
lawyer, but by raised up in the inner city, I was able to be exposed, you know, to my next door neighbor, which was not no doctor or lawyer, but a pimp or, you know, dope dealer coming out the house, you know, with flashy clothes on, getting into a big car, got 3-4 girls with him. I said, that's how I want to be when I grow up. So I was influenced by that.
So you always knew that this is what you would be doing, and you'll be doing it grand style, putting it down in Hollywood and doing big things, huh?
Well, I didn't know I was going to be the best of the best. I just wanted to get into the gang and have a girl drive a slick car, have me a fine diamond ring and watch on, you dig? But I didn't know it was going to blow up and I'll be able to write some of the portions of the game to show these players how to step up their game. Because this ain't no game for the lame, and as the night go on, you will see that. I got to go in here and crown some of these players.
Bishop.
One of the most notorious pimps around, Bishop Don Juan. His 59th birthday, so Snoop Dogg shows up and it plays DJ. Because it's one of his friends, he respects him. There's something wrong with that. One of our biggest celebrities is promoting pimping. There's something wrong with that we're not, as a society, no one's addressing this issue. So, some girls get into this thing thinking that this horrible life that I'm in will get better because the movie Pretty Woman, someone will sweep me off my feet. Some customer will come in and say, I'll take you away from all this. It's not going to happen. It's definitely a Hollywood thing. These pictures are mainly from drug use, but coincidentally, life on the street, whether you live soberly or through drugs, you will have very similar changes. Girls who've been on the street for 10 years, let's say they've never touched alcohol or drugs, will go through a very similar transformation. Their life is not easy. Malnutrition, they don't take care of themselves, they don't have time or the ability, they don't make enough money typically, their money goes to the pimp, and they don't care what their skin looks like or anything else. So they don't age gracefully. I had a girl when I was in patrol on Santa Fe and Esther, walking in the middle, or she's not down the sidewalk, but in the middle of an area where she really didn't belong. She looked like a girl from the Midwest. She kind of had the Farrah Fawcett look, and this was in the probably 96, 97 phase, but she looked like Farrah Fawcett from the 80s. There was something amiss. She didn't fit in. So I pull over next to her and I said, are you lost? You look like you need some direction. She said, no, I'm staying in the motel right there. I'm good. I'm just going to the market. Okay, well, have a nice day. And I drove away. Didn't think anything about it. Looking back now, I recognize the faults, things that I missed. Later on, I see her walking with a guy, and I realize that they're staying in the motel, kind of trying to put two and two together. They're very loving, very much in a relationship. I leave that area, and I end up being an auto theft detective 3 years later, something like that. Bizarre story. The phone rings, our secretary happens to be at lunch, so I answer the phone. It's a man on the phone, auto theft, not missing persons. I'm looking for my daughter. I'm not sure who to talk to, and I'm getting ready to transfer him to missing persons, and I went, well, I'll hear his story first to make sure I understand I'm transferring to the right person. He tells me the story, and I swear it fits this girl. I said, I think I've seen your daughter. I know this sounds bizarre to say that, but I think I saw her about 3 years ago. I can go down that area and see if she's still there, but they were from like Michigan or something like that. And he said, well, I'd appreciate that. He gave me his phone number. So I went down there, and I saw her standing out in front of the motel. Very much like this. What I saw 4 or 5 years prior, something like that, was an entirely different person. I recognized her because she was still a fish out of water. She didn't belong in that place. The hair was still kind of blonde, but that was the only thing recognizable about her. So I pulled up next to her. I said, you remember me? And she goes, no, why should I? So I talked to you when you first got here. She said, what do you mean when I first got here? I said, I can tell it was when you first got here because I'm looking at you now, you've been here a while, and this didn't happen from wherever you came from. She said she didn't want my help, told me to F off, and I drove off. But I knew where she was, what room she was in, because I followed her back to the room she walked in the door. So I called her dad back. He comes down, gets a cab from the airport. He and I and a few other cops meet at the hotel. She opens the door. Dad falls to his knees, literally almost faints. She almost does the same thing because she sees her dad and hasn't seen her dad in a long time. This guy had made himself out to be her boyfriend, had taken her from her family, brought her down to Long Beach, and was pimping her out at the truck stop, Santa Fe and PCH. That's where they had been for the last 4 or 5 years, something like that. And when I saw her, this was a very good example of what she looked like. She did a transformation. She looked like a Junior Farrah Fawcett, kind of a homely, sawdust girl, if you will, riding on the back of a hay truck, something like that. And now she looked like one of these girls. Unbelievable transformation. Dad didn't recognize her. He recognized her eyes. He said that was the only thing I saw in her was her eyes. We talked about missed opportunities. We literally used to just, people would complain. There are girls at 68th and Long Beach Boulevard. Someone used to make them stop working this corner. I'm tired of seeing them. My kids are being exposed to it. We'd go pick them all up, put them in a van, tell them don't hang on that corner. You got to go somewhere else. People are calling about you. That was solving the problem. That was how we solved that problem back then. What we do now, it's a very, very comprehensive approach. I'm sure some of the people in the room have been used. I know that your agencies have. What we do now is we go out and we find the girls in the ads, we make dates with them, we bring them in, and we convince them, try anyway, to get help, to talk to us, to talk about their pimp, and try to end the cycle. It has been very, very successful. It's huge in the fact that we've gotten so many girls out the street and so many girls to cooperate with us. It's gotten so popular now that when we stop girls, I went on one of the last runs we did, I was the first one to open the girl's door. So the cop gets the girl in the car, and they go to a remote place, and just before they can make the deal, he's already given us a signal that she's said enough already that we can make the arrest or the detention. And I pull the car up next to her, and I immediately go to her door. As I get up to her car door, instead of fighting, which would have happened several years ago, she looks at me and smiles. And she goes, sweet, it's Long Beach. And it gave me mixed emotions. I wasn't sure, what do you mean sweet, it's Long Beach? She goes, you guys are gonna give me some information and talk to me, maybe feed me and take care of me. That's cool. I'm good with that reputation. I'm very good with that. At first I was kind of like, I'm not sure that's the best thing because they know that they're not in trouble anymore. And they don't have to talk to them, there's no threat. And I thought, well, there is no threat. Let's look at the other way, there's no threat for us now. They can talk to us if they need us. So that's what we do is we provide services. For the adults, with City Prosecutor Doug Halbert's assistance and his program, we take them and we cite them to a court. At the court, the judge gives them the option to serve their sentence or get assistance. If they get assistance and they do the things we ask them to do, the cite goes away. The idea is to put pressure on them to make them go get help. I know that sounds kind of weird, kind of backwards, but it's better than putting them in jail. Jail did no good for us. We're victimizing a victim a second time. We want them to get help. And it's been very productive. We've had quite a few girls get out the street and have success stories, graduate programs, get their lives together, and not be on the street anymore. This is an idea I came up with. It's pretty common sense, I think, but I got it from the idea of the fire triangle. To make human trafficking work or any system like this work, you have to have legs to it. And in my opinion, human trafficking has 3 legs. If we attack all 3 legs and get one of them to go away, the crime of human trafficking goes away. So that's what we're doing. We're kind of taking a multi-dimensional approach and attacking every single piece of it. So we get a victim, we bring her in, we try to get her out of the fold. There's no victim, no girl to purchase, there's no John. If we get the John to educate him and we talk to him and tell him this is wrong, these girls don't make this choice. This is not something that, and this is the mindset of a John. We have these educational John programs throughout the state, actually throughout the US. They get arrested and they have to go to like driver's training school kind of thing, traffic school. It's kind of like the same thing. But you go there and you get educated on the crime that you're in trouble for. And they educate them and they tell them these girls aren't for sale. This is not a service that they're providing for you. And one guy literally said, I go to a mechanic to get my oil changed. He advertises $40 to change my oil. I bring my car, I give him $40, he services my car. How is that different if she says she's offering a service, I give her money, she provides the service, I give her money? I don't understand the problem. Why is this an issue? And this is literally his words. And a lot of guys in the room are nodding their heads like, yeah, I don't get it. Well, it's not legal for one. Number one, that's the basis. Number two, she hasn't chosen this as her profession. She's being forced into this. It's kind of similar to forced labor. If the mechanic was someone who was forced to do these things, there's a similar connection there, but not exactly the same thing. The bottom line is this girl is forced into this. You're raping someone because she does not want to be here doing this. Certainly if she's under 18, it's automatic rape, but even over 18, you're raping someone because this person does not in her heart of hearts want to be there. She's being forced to be there in the first place. So how can you sit there and say that she's offering a service? She's not. So if we can take any one of these legs off of there, the crime goes away. So pimping and trafficking, that piece of it, we attack the pimps. We try to get as much information as we can from the girls, and if we get a girl to testify against a pimp, that's really all we need. It's great if we get more than one. And that's fantastic, because now they're going to serve time. We've had cases where they've gotten life sentences. We've turned over some of our cases that they cross state lines or they break federal laws. We get Homeland Security involved. And the main reason we do that, they have a lot more penalties. And if we can get the federal government involved in some of the cases, the time they get in jail is much longer. But most of our cases work better for us to keep them local, keep them state. The person stays in jail without going into too much explanation. They stay in jail. They get significant time in jail. We've had 48 years to life, triple life sentences, things like that. A lot of them use their gang as their support system, and when they make those comments, it becomes an additional penalty to their time, and more time on the books. So we look forward to that. You had a question in the back?
No, I was just going to add that I think you mentioned that most of these kids are under 18, and I think that people aren't really labeling it pedophilia, but in essence it is.
Exactly.
I think it's very normalized. The last statistic I heard, and I don't know if it's changed, is that 300,000 kids are trafficked in California every day.
Right.
So to me that means that over 1 million pedophiles are accessing that service every day. And if there's no demand, then there doesn't need to be a supply.
And that's one of our approaches we look for is for girls that are advertising. We look for the girls, depending on the grant that we're working off of. The most recent grant, we're working 18 to 25. The grant we had prior was younger. So we were looking for literally girls that look young, their picture, if they show their picture at all, or their keywords that weirdos look for in the ads. Fresh, new, all those kind of ads. They may not say I'm under 8. They're never going to say I'm under 18 because the websites will take them off. But we look for the keywords in there and then we go and get the girl. So it's been profitable for us because when they advertise like that, we're able to find them a little easier. But thank you, that's exactly right. So branding is very common. Branding is tattooing, just like branding your cattle in the Old West. If you put your brand on there, nobody steals your cattle. It's exactly the same thing. We've had girls several times with girls that have exactly the same tattoo. So what does that tell us? They have exactly the same pimp. Very common. I know I put this picture up, but the one on the inside of the lip is confusing to me. It doesn't advertise anything. This one says Mac Wimp's bitch. That was Mac Wimp. He is a prolific, he's in jail now, was a prolific pimp. And his nickname was Mac Wimp. So he put Mac Wimp's bitch on her chest. She's a kind of a slow girl, didn't object to much. This was better than being at home. This guy was nice to her for the most part. She didn't object. So, I mean, she has this huge tattoo on the chest. Why put it there? It's the first thing you see when you lean into a car. First thing you're gonna see. So competing pimp recognizes Mac Wimp. If he's bigger and stronger and heavier than I am and has more backup, I don't mess with that. That's one of Mac Wimp's girls. Never mind, get away from my car. Get away. I don't want any part of that. Because Mac Wimp's people will get me. I don't want any part of that. Something to think about when you take this topic and put it into your own lives. When I train, I train literally anybody who will listen, but bus personnel, transportation, the airport personnel, nurses, doctors, lawyers, you name it. Anybody who's going to come in contact with anybody, I'll talk to them. And the idea being is that if you recognize this, I want you to tell somebody. I showed this slide and talked about this exact same presentation, very similar anyway, to airport personnel. Afterward, I had 2 employees come up to me and tell me, can you help us change the reporting protocol for the airport? Because I've seen this and I'm told not to do anything about it. And I said, what do you mean not told not to? She goes, well, they really don't tell us not to do anything about it. They just put so many barriers in place that we don't want to do anything about it. They can't report it because it requires them to fill out this long form. They have to get a supervisor's approval. There's all these different steps. So I found that out and I went to their director and they changed their protocol saying, well, we didn't realize that was preventing people from doing anything. A person who works 8 to 5 and just wants to go home at 5 o'clock is not going to report anything. Well, it kind of looks like it, but it's probably okay. I don't want to have to be here after 5 o'clock. I got child care issues, I've got this or that. I'm meant to fill out these forms and everything else. So we make it easier for them. I can verbally tell my supervisor, I think there's something going on with that couple. Can you go take a look? I'm not the roamer, I'm the person who's supposed to do that because someone tells someone. So that's what they've done now is they have people who they call over to go and talk to them. So you'll see this. It's not too uncommon. We've had people call and talk about someone in the supermarket. There's a man walking through the supermarket. This girl does not look like his daughter. She's pulling on him left and right. She's objecting to things. She doesn't want to be held, she doesn't want to be touched. She looks like what that guy at that presentation talked about. She looks like she doesn't want to be there. And we've gone, and it's happened. It's rare, but it happens. But I would rather be wrong, that we go in there, this is his daughter, it's his niece who's just being a problem today. I'd rather it be that, and I'm good with that. And they understand that. If we approach it correctly, they understand that. But why would we would so much rather do that than to let it go and let a victim pass through our fingers. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just spoke to an officer from airport police the other night. Her niece had actually came through. I work in Los Angeles County Juvenile Hall. Her niece came in on the trafficking, so I had to interview the aunt. But what she was saying was, I got my niece out here trying to help her, and I'm trying to help other kids, but then my niece is here, and I'm trying to hope that I can keep her. You know, she's marked up and everything. But anyway, she said what happens at the airport is that they're coming through like 5 to 6 girls at a time, and the only way that they're actually caught that they're trafficking is the credit card that all the girls used was declined, and then at that point the police will intercept them from the police and then put them in safe. But they're traveling through LAX like left and right.
Typically what happens is the pimp controls everything. He has their packet of paperwork. So he walks up with 3 girls behind him and he gives the packet, which is including their passports, their IDs, whatever else is required to board, and then he takes them back. So airport personnel, when I was training them, they said, that happens quite often. And I said, well, my daughter's 11. I'm going to handle her paperwork. She's not going to touch it herself. But when you've got older girls or women walking through there with a man who's controlling all 3 of them, they've got their heads down, there's other signs involved, it's something you need to look at. So that's the kind of thing I want you to notice is, if you've got a girl walking with a guy, and we got this great phone call, there's a guy on a bus, it's the second time I've seen them this week. She comes out of an apartment, it's a yellow apartment with a C on the front. They get on the bus, she looks very disheveled and depressed. She has her head down. He's walking around like he's king. And I heard this thing about human trafficking, and I think it might be something like that. We call and find out. It's exactly what it was. He was going to pick up his girls, getting them on the bus and dropping them off. It's exactly what it was. So if you see something like that, it's okay if you're wrong. We'll check it out. If you're wrong, it's okay. It's no big deal. We started collecting stats in 2013. Prior to 2012, we had some human trafficking cases, but the majority of them we didn't prosecute as human trafficking because it doesn't carry enough time at the time. So we were using them as pimping and pandering cases. So we've actually had human trafficking cases prior, and most of them came out of juvenile. And the reason why is the girls would come in and they would finally eventually tell the detectives, I don't want to go home. And once we found out why they didn't want to go home, they became human trafficking cases. What we do now is the holistic approach we talked about. This is about average for us, 20 cases, 17 arrests. It's pretty solid. Most of our cases that come our direction, we get a suspect. It's not other crimes, you have robberies and things, you might not figure out who did that. Our cases are different. Almost every single time, we'll get somebody for those cases. 21 minors rescued. That wasn't our function this year, but we still got 21 minors rescued, and we had 29 last year. So warning signs, things that you keep in mind for people that you may know, not necessarily involved in trafficking, but These are signs that we developed after talking to parents and realizing there were some things that they didn't notice about their own children. We had a girl who'd been trafficked, and it was pretty obvious to us when we saw her that she'd been trafficked and that she needed help. But we went and talked to mom. Mom had no clue. And I'll be honest with you, my initial reaction was, Mom's a horrible mom. I can't believe she lets her daughter go out and do this. She has no clue. Then I realized Mom's working about 18 hours a day to try to get her daughter into a better environment. I felt horrible after realizing that. But the bottom line was, I said, let's just go to her closet. We walked in her closet. There were so many clothes that she didn't know anything about. She had an iPhone 6. She didn't buy her a phone, but she has the most expensive phone on the market. She had clothing in there that she had never purchased. She said, I buy her stuff from Kohl's, JCPenney, stuff like that, and all these things in here, Louis Vuitton and other things. She was put on the street with a pimp. So those are kind of things that she felt horrible, but that's an educational piece to recognize if your kids are wearing something that you didn't buy them, take a look. I tell this to every group, stay connected to your kids. My 11-year-old daughter, we are very close. And when I pick her up from school, we talk in the car, we talk when we get home, we talk about homework. If there's any change in her behavior, I'll know it. If you're disconnected from your kids because you don't see them until Friday, because you drop them off, you don't talk to them, I don't have time for this, and you're on the phone, your goals are different because you're trying to progress in your own life to help your children. Hold on. You're not helping them. They need you right now, especially at crucial age times. Or when they're depressed, they need to notice. You need to notice when their head is down. My daughter's always happy and bubbly. The one day that she wasn't, I was all over that night. I was all trying to figure what's going on. And as a dad, I finally had to realize she's 11. So stay connected, you'll recognize it. The more connected you are to your children, you'll recognize the changes. And I know with a 13 or 14-year-old, because I got one of those too, they change and you just kind of, what? A lot. I understand that. But there are still times when you should notice the other little things. This is not normal 13-year-old behavior. For nightclubs, social gatherings, things like that, walk in pairs, watch your drinks. It happens. It happens in Long Beach. It happens in pretty much every city. There are guys out there putting things in drinks. Running out of time for my stories, but my 29-year-old daughter, she went to a bar with her friends and her cousins, probably 7 of them. At one point, long story short, they recognized 2 people standing next to them by their beers. They were standing with their elbows on the bars and the beers are right there. A girl came up and talked to them, so they were distracted, and yet some guy still tried to sneak behind them to go buy their drinks with no reason, no purpose. There was no reason you weren't trying to get the bartender's attention. The only thing they were close to was their drinks. So they went, no, we're not drinking these. We're not sure if he got there or not. So they put the drinks in the bar and told the bartender we want new drinks. And he said, no problem, got them fresh drinks. They're educated, they understand. Something fishy was going on here. Dan told us, don't do that. So they're keeping an eye on their things. Go to the restroom, you go with friends, everywhere you go. But I tell them as well, you may get your drink spiked even though you're the most vigilant. If you go with your close cousin, someone's going to take care of you, not the girl who goes with every guy that she takes off with and leaves you in the club. Don't go with her. Go with someone who's going to recognize, and you start going, I'm not feeling good. Get her out of there. Get her out of there because there's someone watching her symptoms, waiting for her to go to the car and be left alone. Get her out of there. Might ruin your night. You maybe just got there. So be it. Get her home. Quick thing, totally off the topic of human trafficking for the most part. If you take photos, or your kids like mine take photos with their cell phones, turn the GPS off. GPS will cause you more problems than you can possibly imagine. Think of this. You take a picture somewhere. I can put what's called a geofence around this area. Say this room. Say you take a picture of me in this room. I put a geofence around this area to capture every image that anyone took in this room during the time that I was up here. Every one of you has, if you have your GPS on, it'll put you right here in this place right now. There are $5 and $10 apps that you can buy on your phone that I can say what author took this photo. It will boop, pop me right into your phone. Now I go into your phone and I see what other photos you've taken. I can't go into your phone and see your bank accounts and stuff like that. It's a whole different process. It's possible, but it's a long step. But I can still look at all the other photos you've taken. How many photos have you taken? I look good in front of the mirror at home, right? Now you've taken, look at our new home, the car in front of the house, look at the kids going to prom. I got your address on my phone. At some point I'm going to find out where you are. If you took a picture at home, I get the longitude and latitude from the GPS, and I can tell exactly where you live. So I can go to your house. Now next time you post your pictures in Bora Bora, I know your house is empty. There's so many things that are bad. There's a lot more I can talk about. The bottom line is turn your GPS off when you're taking photos. If you're gonna post them on social media, everybody that sees your picture, not just your friends, because their friends see your pictures as well. And if they tag someone, oh, that's a cute picture, tag, all their friends see it. Don't think your thing is on private. That doesn't mean anything. People always ask me, what can I do to help this topic? Google, how can I help human trafficking? A lady wrote a book. She has, I think it's 101 ways that you can assist. Getting your community groups together, your neighborhood groups, things like that. There are so many ways you can help. Even if you just stood out in front of Ralph's with a sign that Stop Human Trafficking and a bucket in front of you, when there's nothing in the bucket at the end of the day, at least everyone who walked past you saw Stop Human Trafficking. At least half of them, maybe a handful, will go home and go, what's human trafficking? And Google it. And they'll recognize some of these things. All right, I was told to give some time for questions. I hope I gave enough. Questions? Yes.
All right, so I have comments and questions. So all right, let me start with the questions. So have you ever been in a situation or someone else where the parent was actually doing the trafficking?
Yes.
Wow, that's insane. So,
The female pimp that
I actually, the reason why I know so much about this is because I'm online a lot. And I actually see instances of controlling guys, and I'm like, they might be pimps, who knows? And I just want to say that women, men, everyone should be careful, because you never know that if they're a pimp or not. It's sad.
It's true. You never know who you're dealing with. Sure.
If the female does not cooperate with law enforcement, the best you have against the male, for example, the person that brought the girl to the date or is somehow tangentially involved, maybe there's messages on a cell phone, the best you have is a misdemeanor supervising a prostitute, and it's even half of a misdemeanor because normally a misdemeanor carries up to a year exposure in county jail, and state law limits it to just 6 months in county jail, so there's very little legal exposure for that pimp unless she cooperates and testifies against him. I just want to mention this. Our local state assemblyman, Patrick O'Donnell, is introducing a bill this year to, number one, make it a year-long misdemeanor. That's the maximum you can do on a misdemeanor. And second, let the jury hear evidence of that pimp's gang involvement when they consider the case, which will make it more likely that you can get a gang enhancement, or that the DAs have enough evidence to prove felony pimping, pandering. So I wanted to mention that. I don't know if it'll pass. The legislature is a tricky place when you're increasing penalties, but this is long overdue. It's a huge loophole in the law that it's just a misdemeanor and just a 6-month misdemeanor unless she cooperates against him. So I just want to mention that. So that bill will be coming up this year. Patrick O'Donnell is going to be introducing it in the next week or two. And I think that's a good thing that our local area is pushing that. And Long Beach, I want to commend Long Beach PD. A lot of people may not know this, but Long Beach PD is the leader in the state. When it comes to local law enforcement going after human trafficking, you guys are doing a fantastic job. So I want to thank you for all that you do for this type of focus, because it's absolutely critical in this area. Thank you.
It's a perfect lead-in actually, because I think Long Beach and Anaheim, there are a few police departments that do some really amazing work, but not a lot. And
funny you mentioned Anaheim, because they are I think we lead in this area and they lead in Orange County. Absolutely.
I live in Anaheim, so I kind of know.
Yeah, they're very sharp.
But so there's policy changes that took place in 2012. There's maybe some more policy things coming through legislative, which is great. I'm interested in the culture change within the police department. You've been very frank with how it kind of happened with you, and that's
sure.
Great. How does this get duplicated? How do other police departments? How do other legislative bodies in other states? How does this become duplicated elsewhere? And what were the challenges, I think, in kind of happening along?
I think a couple ways. One is, this is kind of sound arrogant, but we embarrass the other areas. We're not the biggest agency. LAPD, LA Sheriffs, and there's much larger agencies than us, and we're kicking their butts. But what they're realizing now is we're kicking their butts. So they're doing something wrong, and they need to change the way they're doing things. To their credit, they've been focusing, LAPD, for instance, is focused on big cases. So when they've gotten incredible cases, huge federal cases that have gone across the state, multiple victims, multiple suspects, they're huge cases. That's why we've had better numbers than they have, so to speak. They have changed their way of doing things now, and they're going to go after local cases. So the one vice team that we have, they have numerous of the exact same style of team going out and collecting these things. So we were the #1 team in 2013, 2014. I haven't gotten confirmation for 2015 yet. I think we did, but it's going to be very close. After that, we're going to get put behind. We'll be nowhere near the sheriffs and LAPD. When Jim McDonald became the sheriff, he took everything, and my joke with him, because I see him every now and then and we joke about it, that we taught him everything he knows. He's a very, very sharp man. Very pleased that he came to us during the time that he did. He has asked our team to train his people. And quite honestly, they've got some very sharp guys that don't need any training. They just needed some direction and some ability from their management to do what we do. And their hands were tied, so to speak, because they wanted to do certain things, and it's a whole different ballgame. Our PD management has allowed us, they recognized the problem and said, put a team out there to do it. And I've given that team the ability to go out there and exercise what they know best. And I'll tell you the honest truth, the reason why our team is so successful, they all have daughters, and they have a sergeant who is absolutely phenomenal. Every single one of the guys in this team is smart. And there's a common saying among cops, the knuckle draggers, the ones that go out there, I'm not too smart to go out there and make the arrest, you know. I'm first in the door, knock the door down, that kind of thing. These guys are all some of the most intelligent guys in the department. They've all got a tie into this because they have daughters and they want this to stop. So it's harder to stop them when they're at the end of their shift and they've made an arrest and they want to go after someone else and there's no overtime for it. They're calling me and asking me, hey, can we go after this? Yeah, go ahead, go do it, do what you got to do. Because we're going to lose that opportunity. The way this crime works is if you found out information, if you don't jump on it right now, they're going to move.
That's right.
They're going to be gone. It's a very transient occupation, so we have to move on it. So anyway, that's part of it, is getting the right people in the right positions. The other part of it is training. When I first went out, because I thought, a lot of cops know me, I've been here a long time, they know who I am, so I'll go out and do some training. And I realized I was reaching a lot of them, but not all of them. And I had Toby, somebody else on my team, who was a well-respected street cop, looks like hell, but he's the one I was talking about before, super, super sharp. Now he walks in front of a group of guys and they're like, I'll listen to this guy. I respect him. They may not respect me so much because I'm considered management. He's not, and he's one of us. So he comes out there and he goes, hey, take a look at this, man. This could be your daughter. Well, everybody in the back of the room went, you know, now they're listening. And that changed everything. It changed because a 25-year cop in the back of the room does not want to go talk to a prostitute. Hey, how are you feeling? Are you okay? They're not going to do that. For 25 years, they've been spit on, pulled their hair. They know what those girls are going to say. They know how they're going to act. So that's cultural change was huge. It took a while. I still think there's probably a handful of cops that won't go talk to them, but the majority of them are recognizing the benefits to going up and talking to them, not to mention their victims. You may not solve a crime, but you're going to get a girl off the street. And they recognize that now. That could be your daughter. We've had priests' daughters, we've had celebrities' daughters, and people get involved in this stuff. Scary. So the change here made a change elsewhere. And now that our name has been in the paper for all the things we're doing, if you're the chief of another department, how do you not see that and say, what are we doing? So it's helping, it's putting pressure. It's interesting too, I get phone calls from Oregon, Michigan, New York. Hey, what are you guys doing for this human trafficking thing? Wow, you're calling me from over there to ask me this question? Unbelievable. So everyone's kind of catching on that this is an issue. It's a slow rolling snowball, but it's hitting there. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.